The unsolved case of William Renshaw has baffled internet sleuths for years, dividing the community with outlandish theories and heated debates. The following account, reconstructed from the original cold case file, remains at the heart of that controversy, with some claiming it reveals a chilling supernatural phenomenon, while others argue it merely documents the unraveling of a deeply disturbed mind. William Renshaw's case begins on the morning of February 17th, 1988, when a fire broke out at the Briarwood Apartments. As firefighters battled the blaze, Renshaw was discovered outside the building, disoriented and trying to leave the scene despite visible injuries. EMTs treated him for a concussion while firefighters worked to contain the flames. Once the fire was extinguished, investigators discovered a body, charred and indistinguishable, in Renshaw's unit. Renshaw was detained on suspicion of arson and murder. Before the interrogation, a detective described Renshaw's initial state as disoriented. His pupils were dilated, his face pale, and bruising crept across his temple from his hairline. A medical exam confirmed a mild concussion and memory loss, with a jagged, half-healed cut, accompanied by a swollen bruise, suggested the injury was a day or two old. Renshaw claimed he could remember nothing before the previous morning, claiming that all he could remember was waking up on the floor of his bedroom. His head ached, and when he touched it, he found dried blood matted in his hair. The room was silent, except for the low hum of a space heater he kept to push back the winter chill. When he sat up, the pain nearly knocked him back down. As his vision cleared, he could make out the shape of a person lying in front of him. No, not a person. A body. Not just any body. It was his body. That was his face, staring blankly at the ceiling, mouth ajar. He was wearing his shirt, a Rolling Stones t-shirt, the hilt of a kitchen knife extruding from the cartoonish mouth. In the body's right hand was a tire iron. A bolt of pain shot through Renshaw's head when he looked at it. Renshaw instinctively touched his own chest. Besides his head injury, he had no wounds. He was wearing his Def Leppard t-shirt, torn now, and ruined by a dark crimson splatter across it. Renshaw admitted to the detective that he was confused. His head throbbed. He couldn't remember anything. At first, he thought he was dead. That, he thought, would have made more sense. But when he realized he wasn't, he knew he needed to dispose of the body. When the detective asked why he didn't call the police, Renshaw simply stated that he didn't trust the police. Renshaw cleaned up and put on fresh clothes. He put the ruined clothes, the knife, and the body in a comforter, and left it in the bathtub until night. He spent the day scrubbing the floor of his apartment, the dark stain left behind by the body. He mentioned that he was working so feverishly that his room got too hot, so he had to turn off his space heater. In the dark of the night, Renshaw crept out of his apartment with his comforter-wrapped bundle and dropped it in the dumpster. Cleaning had taken all day, and he was tired. The idea of sleeping in the room where he had found his body felt unsettling. He fell asleep in his living room recliner instead. Here the detective points out that this does not explain the body found in Renshaw's apartment. Renshaw responded, "That was yesterday's body." Renshaw said he was awakened the next morning by the sound of movement in the bedroom. It was erratic, like someone searching for something. Renshaw crept down the hallway and peered in cautiously. The sight was more bewildering than what he had seen the day before. It was himself, again. Renshaw admits that somehow he had known it would be. The other Renshaw was running through the room, holding a kitchen knife. He wore a clean Def Leppard t-shirt. He looked suspiciously at the wadded-up comforter on the bed before lunging at it, stabbing with his knife, as if someone had been hiding underneath it. He ripped the comforter open, but it was empty. He looked around frantically, his eyes meeting Renshaw's, peeking into the room. He lunged. Renshaw only recalls bits and pieces of the ensuing fight. He kicked the door as the other Renshaw approached. The door hit the other Renshaw's hand, knocking the knife away. During the scuffle, the space heater was knocked over. The room started to fill with smoke, but Renshaw was too busy fighting for his survival to react to the growing danger. The fight ended with Renshaw restraining his double in a headlock. He held on tightly and didn't realize the struggle had ended until many minutes later. When he ran outside, the first responders had already arrived. The detective challenged Renshaw's story here, pointing out the inconsistencies. Renshaw claimed to have discarded the comforter, knife, and shirt, yet they were all present in his retelling of the next morning. He also called out that Renshaw had explicitly stated he turned off the space heater without returning to the room, yet he claimed it was the cause of the fire. Renshaw clutched his head, growing more agitated as the detective pressed him. It wasn't clear if the confusion came from his head injury or something deeper. His voice rose, cracking as he shook. Then abruptly, Renshaw's head snapped up, his bloodshot eyes locked onto the detective's, intense and unblinking. For a heartbeat, he seemed lucid, until he spoke again. "I'm stuck," Renshaw whispered, voice hoarse but certain. "I remember now. I've been waking up today, over and over. And yesterday, me. He's there too. He's always there." His gaze drifted past the detective, unfocused, as if seeing something just beyond the room. "There used to be more of us. Too many. One of them started killing the others. It never stopped." The detective's notes describe a wild intensity overtaking Renshaw's expression as he pulled against the restraints. "Do you see? I have to stop him. No, I have to stop me. Every morning. I know where I woke up yesterday, but don't know where I'm going to wake up tomorrow. That's how I get me, see? I have to get me before he gets me." Renshaw's words grew more erratic, his desperation tangled with an unsettling conviction. He wasn't simply unstable, he seemed to be unraveling entirely. Concerned for both his safety and those around him, the decision was made to place Renshaw on a 48-hour psychiatric hold. He was moved to a secure holding cell, isolated from other detainees. But the next morning, he was gone. His cell was empty. There was no sign of forced entry or escape. No footage showing him leaving. It was as if he had never been there. To this day, no reliable sightings of him have ever been reported. Had Renshaw's file only contained this interrogation, the case might never have become so infamous among online investigators. But 3 more records are of particular note. The first is a police report stating that no body, comforter, or knife was found in the apartment building dumpster. The second is an autopsy report on the charred remains found in Renshaw's apartment. The remains were never identified, but the few teeth that could be salvaged suggested Renshaw and his victim shared a remarkably similar dental history. Unfortunately, the teeth were too burnt to achieve a full identification. This similarity in the dental records has led some to argue a more chilling possibility, that Renshaw's story may have been far stranger than just the ramblings of a disturbed mind. If he was truly trapped in a loop, waking in the same place he fell asleep each February 17th, it would explain his disappearance from the cell the following morning. Instead of waking in the cell on February 18th, he would have remained in February 17th, still waking in the same cell he fell asleep in. The final record is frequently included with any mention of the Renshaw case, though much to the disdain of investigators who consider themselves more pragmatic. It is a roster from the psychiatric ward where Renshaw was held. The entry for February 17th, 1988, reveals that Howard Finch, notorious suspect of multiple accounts of cannibalism, was removed from cell 202 after a violent outburst against a member of the staff. Finch had claimed that he was starving. The roster also shows that just before the end of the day, William Renshaw was placed in the newly vacant cell 202. Thank you for visiting Archive 19. Your curiosity is appreciated. If you found this story intriguing, consider liking the video to help others uncover it as well. For more stories from obscure sources, subscribe to be notified when the next file is unearthed. New discoveries are released weekly.